Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Sweet Combat Season 1, Episode 25. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're picking up where the last episode left off with Fang Yu's grandfather showing up to convince Tien to walk away from her, but where the last episode ended, Tien's like, no, I'll leave when Fang Yu asks me to leave. And her grandfather doesn't really have anything else to say to that, and just Tien just obviously being as respectful as possible and saying like, right, I'm sorry I couldn't, and thank you, and I'm sorry I couldn't do what you wanted me to. And he walked away because I think he was impressed. It's like, considering your circumstances, you would still stand on wanting to be with my granddaughter, because for him it's like he's under the belief like Tien has some ulterior motives, but for him to be like, right, I'm willing to give you whatever you need, especially considering your desperate circumstances, but even then you still won't give up on my granddaughter. I think it made him see Tien in a different light, like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe because once again he said that 90% of the people around you will like just want you for some reason, and then it's like, oh, like maybe your feelings for her are genuine. Like it's really hard to say because he puts on quite the poker face, so you're not quite sure what is going through his mind. But obviously this whole thing stuck with Tien because he's thinking about it, because now he's like, right, like, yes, like he's thought about those things before about them being from two different worlds, and you know, does, like, just because they have feelings for each other, does that make up for the complications and how complicated and hard things might be in the future, you know, of like how different their worlds are? And obviously at the same time, like, he's kind of struggling with these thoughts. Obviously, like Queen is super happy, and it's just like, once again, it's like every time you see her kind of like get all giggly, and as Yanan puts it, going all gaga, it's like it's super adorable. And the fact is that when like the conversation shifted on like, you know, like, what is there, like, why do you like Tien so much, like what is there to kind of like about him? And it's like, well, what about like Guan Yuan, like what does he like about you? And she's like, yeah, we're over. And it's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, but I can't, like, it's clear to me that how Tien feels about you, that's like super obvious, and how you feel about him, but I'm not quite sure how Guan Yuan feels. But she's like, right, like, you know, Queen tried to say like, right, his feelings seem genuine, without really going on to it. Yanan decides to kind of drop the topic, you know, because it's like, right, like, don't focus on me, let's focus on you. Once again, it's easier to focus on other people's circumstance. You want to focus on their happiness, because as long as your best friend's happy, you're happy, despite, you know, the heartbreaking situation you're in right now with Guan Yan. But it's like, hey, I need you to and tell me as your best friend, like, what do you want me to do? It's like, right, give me, what are some places couples will go on a date? And she's like, you know, and it's like, why would you even ask me? I don't know. And you're kind of rubbing it in my face. Oh, good on you having a boyfriend, and now you got to think about where to go on dates. But why would you ask me? I don't have any dating experience. But yeah, like I said, Tien like calls her, and she gets giggly and like happy, and it's just them talking. And it's like, oh, are you alone right now? And he's like, no, I got a little foreign friend from Dubai. And I'm like, oh God. But like I said, like he's dealing with a lot of that. And you know, it's like, right, even when she was in Dubai, it's like it didn't feel that far away. But now she's saying like, oh, like we're able to kind of look at the moon under the same sky. I mean, it's all one sky, one moon, but it's still the thing of we're in the same place. We're not that far from each other. Being able to stare at the moon in the same location is kind of nice, you know. And you know, it's like, oh, like what if we, like, I forgot how the conversation shifted to like the bunnies being like translators for them. And it's just like I said, Tien's like struggling with those thoughts, because I think it is a thing of like, because he doesn't ever tell Queen that he met her grandfather and what he had proposed to her. So I mean, what he had proposed to Tien about her. So, but because that bunny is supposed to be that. It's supposed to be like, right, anytime he's happy or when he's unhappy, he's supposed to talk to it. So, and he kind of doesn't in that moment. He doesn't talk to Queen about it, his concerns and what's going through his mind. He just wants, because he wants her to be happy, and he wants to, I think, kind of resolve this on his own. And just like, it's because it's coming from his side of the field. He's just, I think it's a complicated thing of, once again, just because you like someone doesn't erase kind of the other maybe complicated circumstances you have to deal with. It's kind of like that's the tomorrow's problem, but you still have to think about it. So But lo and behold, he goes home. Who's waiting for him? Yi Chen, who's just still running his mouth of like, yeah, it was a fluke. You beat me last time, but like I'm gonna beat you again. Like I'm gonna prove that I'm better than you. But he's still acting like a punk and like backing up and is afraid. But Tian's just like, right. I've struggled so much making sure that I can make it through looking after me and my siblings. I've had a lot of responsibilities thrust upon me. He's like, I, for so long, for so many years, wasn't able to just to be happy. I didn't even want to even think about the possibilities of being happy. It's like, all I wanted to do was look after my siblings and try to survive, and I avoided you just so you'd stop bullying me. But like, that wasn't enough for you. You just kept bothering me. And he's like, but honestly, I think God put you in my path for a reason. It's like, because of you pushed me to end up taking part in a tournament, and it allowed me to change and grow. He's like, well, you haven't changed. You're still the same loser. You'll always be beneath me. But Tian's like, have you ever really had to struggle like every day of your life and just kind of like work above and beyond just to make ends meet? And it's like, no, you haven't had to do that. He's like, if I were in your position, I wouldn't waste a single day. Like, the fact is, like, you have so much opportunity, yet you're spending it focusing on me. But even to the point, Tian's like, fine, let me be your life goal of beating me. He's like, fine, I will. And it's like kind of giving him something to motivate him, which will probably get him back in the gym. And the issues that Zhao Feng had with him will probably kind of, because Tian was the one that motivated him to, like, go hard before the tournament to, like, during the tournament, the preliminaries to, take that match with him serious, like if they cross paths. So it's kind of lit that fire underneath him again. So at the same time of all of this, we have the situation with Xiaomi and Hao, which is like, yeah, despite everything, Xiaomi thought she, celebrating her feelings being done with Tian, but it's like they haven't gone away. The heart still wants, like, she hasn't given herself time to fully grieve, like, oh yeah, the person I like isn't with me, doesn't want to be with me. And it's like, we've got to come up with a plan to tackle this. And what's frustrating for her, it's like, why is it that I'm the only one that's heartbroken? What about you, Hao? And he's like, oh, I feel fine. And she's like, really? You're fine? What, were your feelings for Queen that, like not real? But he's like, no, like, where if you're kind of feeling a certain way, I've been stabbed in the heart. It does seem like he is taking it in better stride than Xiaomi. Like, he has been heartbroken about it, we've seen it, but he also says, like, right, I just don't talk about it, which is true, because we've seen those moments with his mom, but it's like, it's not as like, because Xiao, but also, that also might be kind of coinciding with Xiaomi as a character. Like, once again, she wears a heart on her sleeve. We'll get to that when we get to it, but she's very open about how she feels, and so maybe she's a lot more okay with talking about it. Because I think it's like, misery loves company, and it's just like, that's why she's hanging out with Hao. It's like, once again, we're part of the same alliance, and it's just, I want, we're all supposed to be in the same boat because we're both lost, once again, the people we both like to the other person's person, I kind of said that in the worst way possible. The people we both like ended up together, so that's the rub of it, as I've mentioned before. And so I thought it was interesting how it ended up suggesting, like, oh, let's kind of go play foot volley, which that whole thing is a thing straight from the webtoon. Reading the webtoon was the first time I'd ever heard of foot volley. I don't think I'd assume it's a real thing, but maybe it's not. I'd assume so, but maybe I'm wrong. But I'd never heard of it prior to me reading the webtoon, like I said, like 2 months ago or something like that when I was reading it. So I thought that was interesting. I was like, oh, dude, we're doing that. Because I've brought this up previously. Once again, Hao's amalgamation of different characters. The thing is, in the webtoon, Dao Dao, the reason why she gets associated with foot volley is there's a kid who plays soccer in the park that she ended up getting close to. And that kid has an older brother, which, I'll go ahead and talk about that. Older brother ends up, him and Dao Dao kind of ultimately end up getting together. That's where I was like, the Hao and Xiaomi of it all was in that correlation. So that's the other character that Hao kind of pulls from in that regard. So I thought that was just kind of neat and interesting how they handled that. And she was initially not wanting to go, but then like it's like, oh right, I guess your legs are strong, but I guess you don't have enough belief in yourself to actually get it done. And so Xiaomi is very prideful. So she's like, fine, let's go. And lo and behold, they run into Yan'an and Queen, who are awkward around each other. Same thing happens in the webtoon too, because at this point in the story, once again, Queen and Jaegu in the webtoon do not get together until the very end of the series. At this point in the series, both of them have made it clear how they feel about Jaegu. Dao Dao's made her feelings clear, so it's Queen. So at this point in the story, they're battling over him. No. I don't think, no, at this point in the story, they hadn't told each other yet. They're still in this awkward phase of they both know how each other feels about Jaegu, but he doesn't know how they really feel about him. So that hadn't come up yet. So that very much in the same vein of like, yeah, we're kind of awkward around each other. Like I said, the TV show makes it seem like they were in a better place before like things kind of got mixed up because of the whole being in love with the same guy situation. But like in the webtoon, I was never clear on whether Dao Dao and Queen really had a prior relationship. Because it's like they kind of gravitated towards each other because of Jaegu and became better friends because of it, despite everything. And I think the similar thing is here, where it's just like I said, they seem friendly enough, but it's also because it's like, right, we're going to end up hanging around Tien, so like I'm hanging around, Moon Young and not Moon Young, Yanan and Yu. So initially, Xiaomi didn't want to go, but obviously Yanan knows how to push her buttons. Like, oh, I guess you're just. I might have attributed what Hal said to motivate her to be the thing that Yanan used to kind of motivate her. So Yanan's trying to be like, yo, we're friends, so like let's kind of kick it, and I want to like repair this relationship, because she's like, yeah, honestly, like Xiaomi's a good person. She could be annoying, but she's a good person. But the fact is, I miss hanging around her. Which Queen's like, yeah, but is it that, or do you miss her cooking? It's like, fine, if you want to be like that, we can just leave and go back. But it's like, Yanan playing like, mediator to them, just like Hal is as well. So what's interesting too about the difference with the volley, foot volley, is that in the webtoon they play it outside. In this in the live action, they're playing it inside a gym. What's also interesting too, it's a little interesting bit from the webtoon. The referee for the match is some random old dude. Basically, he's like, while they're in the park, this old dude is like walking in the park because like it's actually kind of sad. His wife had died like some years prior, and he's like, oh yeah, I just want to come to the park and reminisce and think about you. And he basically got dragged into being their referee. It's like a small bit of like this background bit you got for this character that literally only pops up like twice in the entire webtoon. Because this one, I'm curious, because it depends on if they adapt this later storyline. There is another. It's not. I think later on, it's not a. I think this is the only foot volley game in the series, but I believe there's another game later on. I want to say it's just regular volleyball. I don't think they'll adapt that situation, but we'll see. If they did adapt that storyline, I'd be so curious to see how they play that out now that Queen and Tian are a couple. If they adapt that storyline, how would they approach it? Would they approach it the same way in the webtoon, or would it be approached differently? And if they did approach it the same way, like how those conversations would play out. Like if you've read, like I said, if we get to that part in the story, I'll talk about it. But they might not adapt that thing at all. We'll see. Because that was also kind of based around the notion of like, right, Jaegu was still unclear about how, I think at that point he was still unclear about how Dao Dao or Queen felt about him. And so that played a role in why the volleyball game got started in the first place to some extent. It played a major contribution to that. So, but either way, the interesting development with this foot volley situation is, lo and behold, who shows up? A bunch of random dudes and Shiwei. I was like, that's an interesting development. So obviously he's messing with them, saying like, oh, you're 3 top athletes at this school, and oh, you can't win. He's like, oh, blah 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 blah, running his mouth. So they take his challenge, and obviously they don't know the rules and they're not good at it at first. Very much, it plays out pretty much like the same exact way in the webtoon, where both like Queen and Xiaomi like both kind of screw the pooch on this. What's also interesting too is that Yanan's involved in this. She's not in the webtoon like Mu Young. Mu Young's involved with the second game, the volleyball game. She takes part in, but the football game she doesn't. So, and once again, how doesn't exist in the webtoon. So, but I mean, I guess because like I brought up, he is partially a different character. That character was there at the time, so it kind of is. But he wasn't playing in that regard. I believe it was only like maybe 2-on-2. No, I think it was. No, I think about it in retrospect. I think they were. Yeah, because like it was. Yeah, because the 4 people was the little boy and his big brother. I think they also participated. I completely forgot. I was like, yeah. Cause I was about to say, did they change that? Cause like, weren't the numbers different? Cause I'm thinking of the volleyball game. Cause the volleyball game was only 2 people. I remember correctly. That's what I think I was confusing with. But the foot volley game was 4. Obviously, they were struggling, and it was pretty much a shutout for most of the game until they finally got their footing, and Dao Dao did her. Well, I was about to, once again, I keep doing that. Zhao Mi used Queen as kind of like a way to kind of get more height and kick the ball. So I also thought it was pretty neat that they had multiple moments throughout the game where they were about to high-five each other, but then they stopped because they're like, right, we have issues with each other. But yeah, obviously the game comes down to the final shot, and our heroes win. So kind of throwing shade in Shiwei's face. It's kind of a good thing because, well, Queen doesn't know about like the underhanded crap he's been doing. Like, once again, going to your grandfather. That's why he knows about Tien in the first place. So Queen's completely unaware of that. Who knows what other machinations he might be up to. We'll see. But yeah, the group gets to go out and celebrate. But it's still that awkward thing of, yeah, but Queen and Zhao Mi are just, it's still kind of an awkward thing. But later on, because they were celebrating so hard, Zhao Mi got drunk, so they just bring her back to Yanan's place, and the 3 of them kind of sleep over together. I think the exact same, like, obviously, I don't remember if it was after the volleyball match or not, but I mean, the foot volley match or not, but I want to say it might have been in the webtoon the same way, but I do remember, like, all 3 of them being together in, like, Moon Young's room in the webtoon, but, like, in this point, like, Zhao Mi's kind of drunk, and it's just kind of, like, it basically, like, a lot of stuff, like, came to the surface about, like, right, like, the fact is, there you are staring at me with that typical Queen look, like you are a queen, and Queen says, like, I envy you. Whether you're happy, sad, or heartbroken, you always wear your heart on your sleeve. You make it clear how you feel, and it's just, like, that's never been something I've ever been allowed to do. So she had to always present herself a certain way. She always had, once again, like, the only person she could really, like, be vulnerable around in her family, it felt like she could be vulnerable around, was her Uncle G. Like, everywhere else, she kind of had to be what her grandfather wanted her to be. She had to be strong and never show any weakness. And then it becomes this conversation of, do you like Tien? She's like, yeah, I like Tien, and I think he really likes me too. And for her, it's like, oh, now you want to be honest about your feelings all of a sudden. And it's like, oh, there you are standing silent, and it turns into a big old pillow fight between all 3 of them, which I believe the pillow fight does happen exactly like that in the webtoon too. It's actually really beautiful, especially it was like, as Queen puts it later on, Zhao Mi and her were able to, like, really squash the beef. It's like, right, don't bully Tien or we're gonna have issues. And she's like, you're never gonna have to worry about something like that happening, you know? So kind of like finally giving them, as she brought up the Tien before, she's like, right, I can't give you my blessings right now, but to some extent I think she was finally able to in this moment. So I thought that was kind of neat. Kind of obviously circling back a little bit because it will tie into the Yanan and her dad situation, but at the restaurant, Mama Hao was thanking, like, you know, Yanan, Zhao Mi, and Queen, because it's like, if it wasn't for you guys, my son has felt so comfortable at the school. He didn't end up transferring, because as we met at the beginning of the series, he was transferring schools, like, and dropping out all the time, and this is the longest he's kind of really stuck to a place. He's had multiple reasons to stick to this place. So but yeah, like, Yanan asked her about, like, oh yeah, did my dad bring that thing? And it's like, no, he didn't. It's like, why didn't he bring it? I was like, is she going to confront her dad about it? Which she does the next morning, because he was waiting for breakfast, and it's like, what are you doing? She's like, no, isn't the chef going to make something? It's like, no, Queen already left pretty early, and so did Zhao Mi. And it's like, oh. He's like, here I was sitting here waiting for breakfast. All right, then I guess we'll just eat the, like, what's left of that like curry rice that will just kind of pull that out. He was so excited. Had the table ready, like, you know, had the napkin in his shirt ready to be all prim and proper, ready for a good breakfast. And he's like, if they were gonna leave, they should have left the chef here. At the very least, Zhao Mi should have stuck around to be the cook. But yeah. Either way, Yanan ends up dragging her dad over to Hao's place, which he kept making excuses. Like, why would I be afraid? Because she's like, did you do something worse that you're not telling me? He's like, no. But then it turns out neither Hao nor his mom are home. He's like, and he's so happy about it. He's like, oh, I guess nobody's home. I guess we'll just have to come back later. He's like, no, don't bother Hao. You don't have to do any of that. And he runs off and she's chasing after him. It's so adorable. He's yet to tell his daughter, like, oh, he's kind of crushing on Mama Hao. Or at least, like, he's kind of in that weird spot, like, where Queen was, where she was unclear how she felt about Tien. It's kind of a similar boat. I mean, to be fair, his daughter's kind of going through it right now, too, where it's like she's saying how she feels about Guanyan, but that's not like, it hurts so much because I think there's a part of her that still wants to believe him and still likes him despite her trying to push him out of her heart. So we'll see where things kind of go on that front. I also forgot to talk about it. I love that the entire time they were doing the foot volley thing, Tien was training on his own because it's like, yeah, we're supposed to have scheduled training, but no one's here yet. So, and they just never showed up because they immediately, and I love they didn't even think about it. There was no dialogue of like, oh crap, we were supposed to go train today. Like, I love, because they were so wrapped up in everything, the foot volley game as well as celebrating. So, but like the next day, Tien and Queen are training together, and it is kind of super adorable. Like her, like them laying down in the ring and just her smiling. He's like, "What was the random smile for?" She's like, "Me and Zhao Mi like made up," and it's like, "Oh," and then, you know, for Tien, it's kind of, he's glad, you know, because him and Zhao Mi are still kind of in an awkward spot, but I think this will also lead to them being in a better place too. But it's like, yeah, she just told me not to bully, and he's like, oh really? And she's like, yeah. And then she kind of like pushes him a little bit. It's like, oh, is this bullying? He's like, yeah, I think it kind of counts. I'm like, and then like laying on the gym floor together, like her curled up to him. I'm like, could you two stop being so adorable? Like I said, the reason why I get so giddy over it, once again, because I'm the romance nerd that I am, and I love me a good romance, but also it's because, once again, we didn't get like those cute couple moments. They had their cute moments, obviously, but once again, that was before they even became a couple, because they don't become a couple in the webtoon until the very end of the series. But it's like, having these cute couple moments are so adorable, and I'm like, you guys are so cute. So yeah, there's that angle to it. But then we also cut to Queen's brother and her grandfather, because obviously I think a lot of this has given him a lot to think about, because like Queen hasn't been back since she left, and her brother notices like, oh, their grandfather's coughing a lot. It's like, right, you need to take a break. But he's like, no, I'm fine. And he overhears these coworkers talking about how, like, right, one person's father's like retiring at 60, because I mean, I'm curious, like, what the retirement age, because obviously, I think here in the U.S., it's kind of like, our retirement age is, like, 65, basically. I'm curious, is that the, like, norm across the world, or would that, I mean, because, like, also, like, I mean, I'd say Asia in general, maybe, I don't know, like, when it comes to the work-life balance situation, and, like, when it comes to, like, work in, like, the Asian countries, I want to say specifically Japan and Korea, I'm aware of, like, what, like, that work-life, like, what, like the culture around working, and that, you know, you kind of just never stop, like, until you're kind of forced to. I'd assume China would be in the same boat in that regard. I mean, I guess you can make the argument in some capacity, just depending on your circumstances. Even here in the U.S., that argument could be made. But even though it's like, I mean, it's not like you're forced to retire at 65, because some people don't. Like I said, it just depends on your life and your circumstances. But I'm just still curious, like, is there even like a traditional retirement age in, like, I mean, any Asian country, but I mean, in regards to this show, I would assume so, because since she referenced 60, so I guess it might be about, maybe that is the universal average retirement age, is maybe like in your early to mid 60s, so anywhere between 60 to 65, maybe. Either way, it got, you know, Queen's brother thinking, because I think it is the situation of, yeah, like, we don't, like, especially where him and, where their grandfather and you are at right now, it's like, right, like you kind of don't want to think about it, but it's just also the thing of maybe he's not in poor health because he is worried about you, but also there might be that element of, yeah, but he is getting up there in age, and I don't want the two of them being like in a bad place before, like, something happens and they never have an opportunity to make up with each other. So he shows up at the school and he starts getting all the attention. To be fair, it makes a lot of sense. You're only like the third boy that ever goes there, because it's like, yeah, we don't see it as much with Tien and Hao, because it's like, oh, they're old hats, but it's like, oh, new fresh blood on the campus. And yeah, like Zhao Mi ends up pointing him towards you, and Zhao ends up telling you like, yeah, our grandpa's sick. And it's like, because she's like, right, just tell him to not overwork himself and drink plenty of water. It's like, can you come home? It's like, yes, I know you made your point to grandpa. Like, you proved your determination. And it's like, he basically says, like, I know grandpa's asked a lot of us. Like, obviously, we weren't just the ones who lost parents. He lost his son and his daughter-in-law, which also answers the question I had previously of which one of their parents was his kid, and it's their dad. But it's like, he never really let it show, because he let us kind of be the ones that kind of handle it, and he had to be the strong one because he was the only adult left to look after us, so he had to handle a lot of that on us, so he couldn't really grieve the way he wanted to either, because it was about making sure we're okay. And yes, he asked us stuff that we didn't always like to do, but we did it regardless, because we never wanted to disobey him because of how much we owe him for taking care of us, looking after us. Once again, he's rough around the edges, but everything he does in his own way does, as I've stated before, it might not seem like it. There might be a cruelty in some elements, but it's like, he does legitimately love his grandchildren, and he just wants what's best for them, and it's just, it's the only way he knows how to show his affection and show his concerns. So our brother was making this point, and it's like, right, you came all this way, bro, so why wouldn't I listen to your request? So she ends up going home, and she tells her grandfather, hey, I'll make some tea, and he's acting like, yeah, sure, fine, don't make it too like hot or whatever. She's like, okay, and walks away, and they're both kind of happy about it, but you see him look up and smile. It's like, yeah, he's a big softy on the inside. He just doesn't always show it, because he's happy. He doesn't want to show it, but it's like, yeah, like, he's really happy to have his granddaughter back, So now for Queen, it's like, right, he hasn't brought up me deferring from the school, which now Tien, this is the first time he's hearing about it, because she stopped by the car wash to talk to him about it. And it's like, right, it's kind of messed up. He asked you to do that. But she's like, yeah, but he hasn't brought it up for a couple days, so everything's fine. And that just means, we've passed a storm, which is like, oh, that might just been a red flag you threw out there, because there's plenty of storms to kind of pass through to complicate things. But that look on Tien's face, because once again, he hasn't told her about, yeah, he came to visit me. Granted, like, maybe this was obviously a couple days ago. He's been probably dealing with his epiphanies and stuff like that, plus you has been outside of the house, so that's kind of been bothering him a lot too. So, because obviously he was grateful, like, knowing, like, oh, you and your grandpa made up and stuff. That's good, because he didn't really hold any resentment. I think hearing, like, oh, he was going to force you to transfer schools bothered him. But it's like, right, like, your family circumstances are what they are, and I get, like, his concerns for you and stuff. So I don't know. I think it's going to give all of that it's going to give Tien a lot to think about. So it's going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.